Well, good evening. My name is Harry Wareing from 92.9 and 96.9 EHM, and it's a pleasure to be in this amazing studio here at LTV and joined by Gene Casey, one of my favorite artists and one of the greats here on Long Island as well. And it's kind of a cool concept that LTV brought to us at EHM and wanted to get to know local artists. And I've been wanting to do something like this for a while to kind of just get past all, yes, we've got some events coming up and different gigs, but I wanted to get to know them a little bit better and sit down for a little bit. And what better way to start than with Gene Casey? Gene, thanks for doing this.
My pleasure, Harry. We've met many times. I've popped in the studio and always appreciated that. But it's nice to have more of a conversation.
Yeah, it's nice to kind of get to know you a little bit because everything I know about you has been, different records coming out. And when I started at EHM, I guess back in 2007, and everyone's like, "Yeah, I got to hear Gene Casey. He's terrific. This is it's great." And that's really all I knew. I never knew where you came from. And I guess we should start there.
Okay.
With because in my mind you've always been Gene Casey and the Loan Sharks, Southold, all over the East End. But where did you grow up?
I grew up in Malvern.
Okay.
That's the little village. It's really just a few miles from the Queens border. And I was the baby of the family. My father was a New York City policeman.
Oh, wow.
My mother never learned to drive. She was just a Queens girl.
Yeah.
And we did the classic thing of moving into the suburbs. And it was a very peaceful existence, and it's still a very nice village. But that's where I grew up. And I have an older brother and sister, and I was heavily influenced by their taste.
That's interesting. You don't think of that because as far as your siblings, if they're older, you're going to kind of get into things that maybe when you were 10 years old, you might not have stumbled across.
I was also out of step with my peers. Everyone was listening to Jethro Tull and Yes, and I was still listening to the Animals and the Yardbirds.
When did you start thinking, all right, when did you learn guitar?
Well, I started playing the guitar because my brother had his garage band, and I was the little kid watching them play, and which was really nice because they used to tape record and do talent shows, and I just picked it up. So around when I was 10, I started to kind of learn chords, and I played the drums. I was just a little kind of annoying kid.
You were the one where when someone didn't show up, they were like, all right,
maybe
let
we'll
Gene
let
in.
Gene, yeah.
That's funny. No, it's interesting to see. And no, did you take any formal lessons at all, or
no,
you just kind of?
The arrogance and impatience of youth, I never wanted to learn. I figured, well, the Beatles never did, but they were the Beatles.
Yeah.
And now in my later years, I really wish I had a stronger foundation in chords and harmony, as I've aspired to play more complicated music like swing and jazz. But I just went by ear. I still do. What
was your family listening to as far as your parents, and because it had to influence what direction and where you wanted to take playing music?
I will say before I answer that, I'll say God bless them. They were very encouraging. They weren't turn that noise. When it got to a certain point, that the
they
lights
were parents,
would flicker.
.
But they loved the fact that their kids were playing music, and my mom was one of the original kind of Bobby Soxers that used to go see Frank Sinatra at the Paramount Theater in Manhattan.
Wow.
And whenever I see newsreel footage of that year, I'm always looking to see if I could see my mom. My father was more of a Bing Crosby fan. And they both loved show tunes, and that was the influence. We had a lot of just like Perry Como records and so on. And my father also loved Fats Waller.
Okay.
So, and then my brother was, like I mentioned, the Beatles, Stones, Kinks, Who, Animals, Yardbirds. That raw mid-'60s sound was a big thing. That's how I learned how to play rock and roll.
Now, were you doing? Did your brother have a band? Did you kind of tag along?
The classic kind of garage basement band, and my dream was to eventually play guitar with that group.
No, that was your dream.
That was it.
What was your parents' dream for you, so to speak? Did you go to school, or?
I went to school, and I was kind of a dreamer in high school. I didn't take it very seriously. Eventually, I went to college, to State University in Old Westbury, which is one of the last real left-wing radical colleges. and that says a lot about my education. But after 4 years of that, I said, I just want to play guitar in a band. I miss it, you know. And at that time in the early 80s, I was playing in Manhattan with kind of not punk, but raw rock and roll bands. I played CBGBs and all those clubs. It's kind of like the tail end of that punk scene.
Well, we're chatting with Gene Casey here on LTV. Why don't we do a song? I know we're going to do a couple songs tonight, and we want to hear that. But we also want to kind of see how you got out here, so to speak. Well, so we're going to chat with you about that in just a little bit. But we're live here on LTV with Gene Casey performing in this great studio here. We can't wait to. Thanks for doing this, Gene. This is terrific.
My pleasure. I'm digging it. A song?
Yeah, let's do it.
Here's a song. I call this my theme song, just because it tells a little story. It's
nice.
About 80% true. It's called Guitar in the Rain. I came home, you was gone. Said, what the hell is going on? My poor heart filled with pain. See my guitar in the rain. Well, I rang the bell, tried the key. Well, I thought this place belonged to me. 5 long years down the drain. See my guitar in the rain. Oh, but the wood is good and the body is fair, despite all the rain and the wear and tear. Oh, what a sad, sad song sitting there tonight. So I hit the road, what could I do? Oh, worn and torn and sad and blue. I hitched a ride, jumped a train, and I played my guitar in the rain. Oh, but the wood is good and the strings still ring, despite all the rust and the dust and the dings. Oh, what a sad, sad song it sings tonight. Now if you wonder where I'm at, well, you don't have to worry about that. Listen hard for the strings of a lonely guitar in the rain. Listen hard for the strings of a lonely guitar in the rain. Yeah. Ho!
Very nice. Gene Casey live here on LTV as we get to know him a little bit and kind of see the roots, so to speak, see where you came from and kind of learn about, I guess, the whys and the different moments.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out why.
Well, it's interesting because you said you were in the city doing different gigs and different clubs. Was that what you wanted? Because you did move out. How after that, after that, did you move out here?
Actually, between high school and college was that era of playing in Manhattan and playing the clubs. And that, 2 o'clock in the morning with a band splitting up $30, I said, maybe I should go to school.
Yeah.
But what happened was after a few years of school, I said, I miss playing music full time. It's really what I want to do.
Okay, yeah.
And at that time, I had moved out to Sag Harbor thinking it was just going to be for a few months.
Yeah.
And I got a job. I was working for actually the author John Irving.
Oh, wow.
Back then, you couldn't spit without hitting a famous novelist around here. But John Irving, I was working for him just as a kind of gopher handyman. And that's when I formed the Loan Sharks.
Wow, so that's when it all began.
Yeah.
What year was that?
You really want to know?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going deep here. We want to,
No secrets. June 1988.
Wow. So in Sag
Harbor, I was
Harbor,
like 11 when it happened.
Of course. When did you? How did you meet the Loan Sharks, so to speak? Was it through different gigs, and you guys kind of pulled together?
It was thrown together. I had a friend from college, Phil. His brother-in-law played the drums, but my brother, who was Vincent, who was originally 6 years older, my hero, who had all the garage groups. he agreed to kind of join the group as a bass player and just kind of take the back seat and kind of let me run the group because he didn't want to deal with it. And that was the first 4 members of the Loan Sharks. And,
Wow.
and quickly people come in and leave. And it started to get, it went from being just a lark to being serious because we were getting hired to play these parties and, serious money and serious clients. And then, suddenly I said, I better take this a little more seriously as a business, which that's still not easy to do for me.
Well, it's interesting because you had that moment where you were like, all right, this is real. And that's not, it's not just Saturday night where we make a few bucks and this is something we can do with it. How did that change your mindset with writing? And did you, not that you took it more seriously, but you clearly said, all right, this is the path I need to take?
Well, we were getting a lot of work and getting known as a kind of a roots rock and roll group, and which is fine. That's really what I love playing. But I've always written songs. Like learning to play the guitar and learning to write songs happened at the same time for me. But having a group that was working and playing rock and roll, roots rock and roll, I decided I should try to write roots rock and roll songs. And I found, much like somewhere I read that when Lennon and McCartney started to write songs, they found it very difficult to write rock and roll, classic rock and roll songs. They could write ballads and such, but like the real 50s kind of Chuck Berry type of song, it didn't come easy. And I found the same. And that's the last I'm going to compare myself to the Beatles. But to write a classic rock and roll song, I've always kept that in mind to try to do that. And the Guitar in the Rain is an example of that. But to answer your question, I wanted to write songs that I could squeeze in and kind of sneak into our set that people wouldn't say, what the heck is that? Because I don't make a big deal like, ladies and gentlemen, this is an original song, so please listen. I just like to kind of sneak it in. And that's really what I've been doing with my songs.
That's actually really smart, and I imagine probably very rewarding to see certain things when you created the song and to be able to play it in front of someone live.
Oh yeah.
To see the reaction, to see what works, what doesn't.
Oh yeah.
It's got to be such a learning process.
It's great to see people following the words, singing the words. Your own words. That's a mind blower. That's a great feeling.
What is your writing process? Do you obviously you're still writing, but is there a set thing that you, or just when something hits you, an idea?
Yeah, I'm
just jot it down?
There's the 9 to 5 guy, and then there's the pure inspiration guy. I'm the pure inspiration. 3
a.m, you wake up and you're like, hey.
And it's not convenient. I'll be driving and have to pull over or mowing the lawn or doing a kind of menial task. Kind of frees the mind.
Interesting.
And I get ideas. I'll overhear a comment, someone make it just hits me, and then I better jump on it right there because it will go. The inspiration flies away.
You've been doing this, like I said, since 1988 with the Loan Sharks. And it's got to be interesting to see how the band has evolved over the years from, like you said, from just a project to something serious in your career. What's it like to work with a lot of different musicians coming in and out, because it is not that there's not consistency, and there has been, but it changes it a little bit.
It does. Well, everyone who joins the group, as opposed to just sitting in, everyone has left an imprint, especially drums. The drummer I've been working with for over 20 years, Chris Ripley, comes from a jazz background. So when he plays rock and roll, it really has that swing feel, which is beautiful. And that has affected how I play guitar. Certainly affects what songs we'll do. We always go with the strong point, having a saxophone player that opens up everything. And if for some reason those guys aren't on a gig, if it's a real straight rock and roll drummer, we'll kind of get nasty. And I find that's the organic relationship of musicians. Just play how you play, and we'll come up with something that works.
How many albums have you done over the years with the band?
With the group? Well, I think 6 or 7 since about 23 years of putting out stuff. Sometimes I'll re-release stuff or do a compilation. But it's all been, self-produced, self-manufactured. And they go out of print, and then you reprint them. We used to sell a lot of gigs, but now that doesn't happen. Coping with the fickle music business, the record industry is a challenge.
Well, I was going to say it's changed so much since 1988, where it was, get the albums out there and, vinyl and CDs, and now it's all streaming. What's it been like to adapt to that in the past decade or so, where it happened really quickly, it feels like, where all of a sudden it just completely changed?
Well, selling them at gigs was always the nice thing. You could play at a restaurant or a bar, and if you sell 10, 15 CDs at the end of the night, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's gas money. And then people have it, and you formed a relationship. Now, I know there are people who give out download cards and such. The streaming thing is the big mountain that I haven't quite scaled. Our music is out there, but it's really hard to kind of do the mom and pop shop thing, where it's we have records in the back of the car. Here you go. So
I do think part of the appeal, though, of your music is that it's almost timeless, and it's not. I appreciate people like having a record, something they can hold.
Oh, I do.
And I feel like while it's changed and everyone grows up differently, I think people still need that, and whether it be artwork or whether it be something that kind of brings a moment and a memory with the artist. Why don't we do another song? We're live here on LTV with Gene Casey. We're getting to know him a little bit, kind of tracing him throughout the years, and of course the Lone Sharks throughout since '88. And we want to kind of dive into a little bit more and see how the music scene has changed in Sag Harbor and Long Island over the years. We'll chat about that in just a little bit, but let's hear another track. Gene, thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Harry. This is a brand new song, so I might have to cheat and make up lyrics.
We won't know.
This is called You Know Where to Find Me. You know where to find me. You know where to call. If only to remind me I'm yours alone, that's all. An open invitation whenever you're in town. You know where to find me. I'm always around. And you know I'll be waiting with the light on the porch. Well, it's more like a torch in my hand. And you know when you leave me that the light will stay on for as long as you're gone again. You know where to find me. You know where I stay, with the future there behind me, making plans for yesterday. It's when you said you loved me, and your love would never stray. You know where to find me. I've never gone away. And you know I'll be waiting with my ear to the ground, listening for the sound that I know. And you know when you leave me that the world will turn and there'll be silence again when you go. You know where to find me. You know where I'll be, in a place that seems to bind me to a memory. It's just as you remember, if you remember me at all. You know where to find me, you know where to call.
Gene Casey live here at LTV. A brand new song there. Thanks for doing that.
Thank you. That was almost a debut. I did it once before.
Very nice.
Still learning it.
Now, I'm curious, have you been writing more with everything that's been happening in the world and in quarantine and the pandemic? Has that inspired you or?
Well, indirectly. Emotionally, it's devastating and it's not very motivating.
Yeah.
But, however, like a couple of months into this whole lockdown, I had offers to do online shows from various libraries. And that forced me to, and there was a weekly thing, and that forced me to kind of dig up songs and older songs, and it got me inspired. I wrote that song and a couple more, so out of necessity, really,
that's great.
And wanting to have a new thing. So it kind of gave me a little goose, you know.
It's interesting because now, with everything that's been going on in the world, I think one of the hardest hit are local musicians with the venues and kind of reshaping the model, and it's another change, another pivot, so to speak. And you've done this for a long time. You've seen it at different phases. What's it like to be kind of the elder statesman of it all? And what would you say to the new musicians that are just starting? And I think, and I want to say too, I almost feel bad when I say that you're a Long Island's own or local musician.
I'm
because
proud of it.
Because you're better, because it's in a way, I don't want to minimize it because you really are part of the fabric.
But I had to come from somewhere.
That's true.
And I've stayed out here for a number of reasons. I have a nice house on the North Fork, and I've tried to do the commuting thing, whether it be Manhattan or Nashville. I make a lot of trips down there. Yeah. But you asked about 2 or 3 questions in one.
Yes, I have a lot we want to talk about, Gene.
It's okay. My music, due to the internet and so on, I know my music is being played and bought in in Belgium and in Japan, in Ireland. I have little pockets of fans, and actually I was supposed to go to Ireland in October, but that got canceled. But that's one answer. Elder statesman, or how I would just tell young musicians to when this kind of gets back to normal, there's a healthy open mic scene all around Long Island, and that's a great way to kind of meet other musicians and see what's out there and get your songs heard and find out what works, what doesn't. And also, it teaches you how to never expect people to actually pay attention to you. Because
I've often wondered, because I've done, and you work in radio long enough, and you've seen a lot of musicians, and you go to a lot of events. And I'll never forget when I was in college, and we had a station, and we would promote an event, and there was a band, and we could not draw a crowd for anything. There was, I think, 2 people there, and I think they worked there. And it was embarrassing, but it was funny because they were like, "No, this is normal. It's all right." I'm like, "Well, this shouldn't be." Right. What's it like to? Now, this, I hope it's been a long time, and I know it has. But for you, what's it like to do gigs where you know that? And and I think the rule now is that music has to be, quote, incidental, with everything going on.
I thought it was accidental. That's more like my style.
Yeah, it's just funny because, in a way, it's got to be hard because you pour yourself into this. What's it like to do that? To perform before?
Rock and roll and, for lack of a better term, roots music is not background music.
Yeah.
like a jazz trio could really just play beautifully all night, and people would kind of acknowledge it. But this kind of music that I write and sing really demands or expects a response and an interaction.
Yeah.
But you can't you can't expect that it's your, it's not your right. You have to earn it, and you have to be good, and you have to know how to engage people. Even on a slow night, you have to pick a few people who are listening and sing to them. I have actually had a good time on some like bad nights where I just relax and I just try to see what works.
Yeah, you can try different things.
I'll tell you, I'll try to keep the story quick because I learned something about 10 years ago, and I was hired to play a very ritzy East Hampton mansion party, and believe it or not, we were opening up for Elvis Costello to play solo Elvis Costello, and he was on tour. So that's the kind of party we're talking about. And we did our set, and no one was there. It was just the guys setting up the tables. But, all right, it's a good gig. We got paid anyway. But when Elvis Costello was supposed to play, the guests had barely arrived at this big party. They were still hanging up their coats and greeting each other. So he actually did about a half hour with no one paying attention to Elvis Costello except us. We were like, and I said, and he just plowed through it. He was getting very well paid, but he didn't have any frustration. He just played great. And by the end of his hour, the partiers had finally kind of warmed up, and they were like, "Whoa, it's Elvis Costello." But that taught me a lesson. If that's going to happen to him, if he's at this point, I'm never going to worry about having a slow night or people talking and drinking while I'm trying to sing my song. You just got to do it.
Well, you are synonymous with the East End, and I think a few years back you were actually inducted into the Long Island Music Hall of Fame, which is an incredible honor. When you were going through everything, things were clicking, and through all the different gigs in the late 80s, early 90s, was there a thought in your head? Because it sounds like you didn't want to travel. You didn't want to go through the van to another city every... was there a time where you thought about it?
There's touring, and then there's touring. Going up to Connecticut and Pennsylvania is like, or spending a weekend somewhere, that's okay.
Yeah.
It was actually pretty rough even then. But I know musicians that have go back and forth around the country, and they're like mature people sleeping on people's couches and so on. The band, it just wasn't. We weren't set up for that. We were playing so much out here. We had really good gigs people wanted to do. We had them. So I didn't do the excruciating touring thing, but there was always the call of Nashville, which people say you should play in Nashville, and I've been down there many times, and more recently as a songwriter and done work down there.
Yeah.
But I like what I have. I'm very comfortable where I live, and I work a lot, or up until recently was working almost too much.
You mentioned working where it has changed, and now you're doing a lot of almost things like this, where you're kind of sitting before a camera. Is it hard without that interaction, especially for your music? It doesn't elicit that reaction.
Yes, it's we've done a few gigs recently, past few weeks, where there's an audience, thank God. Yeah, it does. Like I said, you need interaction, but I just know that eventually people will be watching and enjoying it. But doing an online show, for instance, was difficult to adjust to pretend.
I would imagine, because I think part of in being a musician is the instant reaction, where you're like, all right, this is working, and you're playing before a screen. You don't know.
Right. Well, it must be like being a radio.
It's somewhat,
I mean, you don't know if there's 10 or 1,000 people listening to you.
Part of that's good, because you don't want too many people staring at you. That's why we get into radio, Gene. But it's nice to. But it is fun when you go out to a gig or you do things like that where people know you and you meet people. I'd imagine for you, it's very rewarding to see that grow over the year, and you have such a relationship with the community itself. I think that means more.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
It does. Yeah. If anything, what I've learned in this whole pandemic is how important music is for the audience, because they're really hungry for it, and they're for the music, not just for the band, but for each other. That's where they meet.
Yeah.
That's where they see each other at the gigs, and they miss that. And that taught me a lesson about, this is not just about me. It's not just about my fame or my music. It's about the whole scene and people interacting and having a community.
Yeah. Let's do another song here. We're live here at
Do you have time?
LTV. Yeah, I think we do. I think one more.
Okay.
And then we'll wrap up. We're here with Gene Casey, live at LTV Studios. This is terrific. Thank you for performing, and it's really an honor to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry. I've enjoyed it. This is a real rock and roll song. You have to imagine drums and the upright bass
Nice.
and saxophone. It's called Don't Bother Me, I'm Rockin'. Well, I called my little darling on the phone. Her dear old daddy said she's not at home. I asked him, sir, could you tell me where she's at? He said, son, that gal of mine's an alley cat. Well, I hate every honky-tonk in town, trying to track my little darling down. I found her at a place they call Giacomo Jack's. She was dancing on the tables, hunting begging. She said, don't bother me, Daddy, I'm rocking. Well, it's a Saturday night and I ain't got time to lose. Well, don't bother me, Daddy, I'm rocking. And I ain't got time to hear you sing the blues. Well, I sat that woman down and I said, darling, it is time that you and I got engaged. But just when I was about to pop the question, a little rock and rollin' band hit the stage. Yeah, she said, don't bother me, Daddy, I'm rockin'. Well, it's a Saturday night and I ain't got time to lose. Well, don't bother me, Daddy, I'm rockin'. And I ain't got time to hear you sing the blues. Now later on there came a fateful morning when I was taking my little darling for my bride. So I hurried on down to the chapel. I was waiting for my darling to arrive. Well, I don't know what to say about my darling. The way she stood me up, I'll never understand. Someone saw her later on that evening. She was back at Jack's, swinging to the band. Yeah, she said, don't bother me, Daddy, I'm rockin'. It is a Saturday night and I ain't got time to lose. Don't bother me, Daddy, I'm rockin'. And I ain't got time to hear you sing the blues. Well, now, don't bother me, Daddy, I'm rockin'. And I ain't got time to hear you sing the blues. Don't bother me, Harry, I'm rockin'.
Gene Casey, live here at LTV. That's terrific. That's a lot of fun. And I can't wait to get back out there, I'd imagine. You've been doing some shows in front of people, but it's not the same.
It's not the same. We've done in front of cardboard cutouts. No, we have done some, and we have a few left in the summer.
Yeah.
We're going to get to it.
No, and I think slowly people are learning how to do it now safely. And
Slowly.
Yeah, very slowly. I'm curious what musicians, I'm curious now, there's a lot of different local artists that are out there here on Long Island, ones that have caught your attention, that kind of, they've got something. Are there a few that you that come to mind?
There's a gal named Cassandra House. She's very good. She's a real committed performer. I like her. Now you're going to put me into...
Hey, sorry to put you on the spot.
There's a lot of people out there who
I
are
know.
very good.
You're not gonna
Brian
remember all of
Gallo
them.
is good, but there's a lot,
Yeah.
and they're plowing through.
What would you? We touched briefly on this. What would you say to that person, that 20-something that just moved out to Sag Harbor, so to speak, and thinks, hey, and the world's different because everyone's putting it out on every platform these days. But what would you say? But it's the same field. It's the same business, so to speak, and of music. What would you tell them if they're just kind of starting and they want to start a career?
I would just say, really listen and go out there and listen to everyone else, and be part of a scene, and bounce off and get your audience that way, and be very, very selective, and don't put out CDs of 40 songs. Put out a few, and really just take your time, but get focused is really, I guess I would have to say. And again, I would say be prepared to be ignored for a long time.
That's very important because I think now with the internet and everything, you look for that. You look for the likes. You look for that instant reaction.
Yeah.
And it's not going to always be there when you first start out, and you just got to keep doing it and getting the reps, so to speak.
Yeah.
With it. Any music you're liking as far as these days? What are you listening to?
I go through phases. I like First Aid Kit.
Nice.
I really liked. I got to see them at the Beacon Theater a few years ago. I like. Who's that gal? She's from Merrick, Long Island. I can't think of. She's a young gal. She's. Oh boy, but I'm not going to get her name. I listen to that, and then right now I'm listening to a lot of soul and funk from the '70s, stuff that I'm really, my playlist. That I do that. I think that's pretty much what I'm doing right now.
Are you looking to maybe, and have you thought about doing something that's just Gene Casey, not minus the lounge, but something a little bit different?
Well, the previous record I put out as Gene Casey, just because I didn't want to have to explain anything to people. Why doesn't this sound like the band I heard Saturday night? It was more of a kind of alternative country record. But you having said that, the next record is going to be very much a band record, maybe a live record.
When are you thinking of put it
it's
together?
actually it's ready to go.
Okay.
So we're just going to wait a little bit. But we did a live show at the Rodeo Bar in Manhattan, which is no longer. So it's a bit of a historic document. But it's the live Loan Sharks for sure.
Very nice. Well, Gene Casey, we look forward to that and a lot more in the future as things slowly start to open up and live shows return. Thank you for doing this today.
Thank you, Harry, and thanks LTV and everyone out there. Appreciate the support.
Very nice to get to know you on this afternoon and this evening as we spend some time. Very nice to get to know you this evening and see where you're headed and where you're from. So thank you so much.
My
really
pleasure.
Appreciate it. Of course, with 92.9 and 96.9 EHM and LTV teaming up, it's been a terrific partnership, and we thank them for that, and we look forward to doing more of these in the future. Thank you so much, Gene. Do you want to do one more song to wrap up?
Oh, just a little bit.
Yeah, we'll finish up on this. Thank you.
I'm a rattlesnake, a daddy, and a rattle from town to town. I'm a rattlesnake, a daddy, and I rattle from town to town. And when you hear me holler, girl, you better get way down. That's it, baby.